Oh, hold on. Who's this?
Hello?
Here's the thing. I think you're using the term ready incorrectly.
That's right.
Oh, really?
Because we've been ready for quite some time.
Wait, aren't we supposed to get on at 2:30? Oh, no, it's 2.
Oops. Well, it's 4.
Listen, you tosser hipster asshole. Don't make me go on Twitter.
Yeah.
I texted Brent like when we first got on, like about a half hour ago.
Yeah.
When we first got on, I texted him. I said, "Hey, do you think if we're mean enough to Daniel, he'll quit the industry?"
This is Epic Battle Cry Skirmish 202 Depeche Mode Rage Quit!
Hello and welcome to Epic Battle Cry. This is the place where we cut through the crap to bring you the real deal in the gaming industry today. I am your host, Tony Grice, and with me, as always, is Daniel Kaiser and Brent Adams until the end of this episode when I insult them enough that they quit the industry entirely. Daniel, how are you doing this week, buddy?
I'm doing good, you friggin' tosspot. Now, look, I haven't canceled any games or gotten I haven't gotten in too big of a tissy on Twitter, just a little one, I guess.
Give it time.
Anyway, I'm doing great. It's been a very interesting week. There's lots to talk about. It's summertime. We're finally out of June and July, which were pretty slow. We're looking forward to August. There's some good games coming up, and it's a great time to be a gamer. It's a great time to just be doing a show and talking about the advancement of interactive entertainment. So let's do it. Did I mention you were a tosspot?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
I'm glad we have covered the bases there.
Yeah.
Brent, how you doing this week, man?
What's up? My tosspots of terror! My wankers of wrath! How art thou?
I feel like there's going to be a running theme throughout today's episode, whether we try to or not.
There might be. It might involve overreactionary whining.
Or let's just ditch that one word we've already used a bunch of times. Let's let that be the last time because we don't want to overuse it.
That's true.
If there's anything we're known for on this show, it's restraint.
Yes.
Touche.
All right. Well, we do actually have plenty to go over this week, so let's go ahead and run through the the gauntlet.
Gauntlet!
All right, guys, we are here in the gauntlet, and as I said, we got a bunch of stories to go over. The first up of which is the news that you will get to play as a different character in the upcoming BioShock Infinite DLC. Brent, who are you going to get to run through as?
So, as it turns out, in these first details that we've got on the Season Pass of BioShock Infinite's DLC, you're going to be able to play as Elizabeth in Rapture, among other things. So there's a few different things to talk about here. Number one, we've got a pack called the BioShock Infinite Clash in the Clouds. Now, this is the first add-on pack, and the focus here is on BioShock Infinite combat. We're told that you can combine weapons, vigors, gears, tears, and skylines in ways that you never thought possible as you square off against impossible odds.
Okay.
This pack will feature 60 challenges in 4 brand new environments, and that's going to come complete with blue ribbon challenges. You're going to be able to unlock concept art, voxophones, connectophones, and more. Now, I think that the next part is probably like the real meat and potato stuff that people are looking for, and this is BioShock Infinite Burial at Sea. There are 2 episodes that are announced in this so far, and the storyline here is that you return to Rapture. In episode 1, you're playing as Booker and Elizabeth on the eve of Rapture's downfall.
Interesting.
And this is going to basically be like what, they're describing sort of like this crossover hybrid combat experience between BioShock and BioShock Infinite. It's going to involve the best of both with new weapons, plasmids, slash vigors, tears, skylines, big daddies. Now, in episode 2, you're going to be playing as Elizabeth as she seeks to bring closure to her story. Now, the Clash in the Clouds DLC pack that I mentioned is $5. And then these 2 episodes, the Burial at Sea 1 and 2, those are going to run $15 each.
Okay.
and we do not have a release date on those. Clash in the Clouds is available now on PSN, Xbox, and Steam. So anyway, we've talked about BioShock in the past, especially you and I, Daniel.
Yes.
The question that I have for you, and then you as well, Tony, is anything about what you've heard in this DLC, the fact that it's going to be a return to Rapture, the fact that it's going to, mix the combat styles, the stuff for each game, all that stuff. Is there anything about this that is getting you excited enough that maybe you would consider going back to Infinite, where you might not have been thinking about it prior?
In a rare case of me kind of actually going way back and kind of circling back on what I've said in the past, yes, actually there is some stuff intriguing enough about this content that makes me want to actually experience it. And here, I do want to say that. Now, we've said both have publicly stated that, not thrilled with what BioShock Infinite had to offer. What I did say was that I enjoyed the combat. I did say that was fun. I enjoyed that. The things I didn't like about the game, which we talked about at length before. So check out those episodes if you are really interested in finding out. But what they've done with this DLC is I actually think they've done a really good job in the way that they presented this, because they come out, they say, boom, this has been highly anticipated DLC for the Season Pass, which a lot of people already paid for. We've been talking for months about when we're going to get some sort of information about this. So to have it be announced and available on the same day is something that we as gamers have talked about, that we enjoy, we appreciate, we think that's kind of cool. Boom, here's Clash in the Clouds. It expands upon the combat. It basically amounts to challenge maps that allows you to experience what BioShock Infinite brought to the table that was different with its combat, and something that a lot of people associate with being the most rewarding aspect of that game. You get to dive in right now. If you have the Season Pass, you're in. If not, it's $5. Okay, fine, whatever. What's interesting about the second piece, the Burial at Sea, is that it does in fact kind of mix the best qualities of both games. So the ramp up is going to be the storytelling, the dark atmosphere, and kind of going back to the initial BioShock offering, focusing on Rapture, which I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with Booker and Elizabeth in that setting from a story standpoint. If you liked the original BioShock, which I liked the original one more than I liked Infinite, and then it's going to turn into a melding of the combat scenario. So the kind of, they've built this Burial at Sea within Rapture, but with the engine and everything they've used from Infinite. So I do say this is intriguing. Usually if I don't like a game, I would kind of just write off its DLC. We always ask that question. Is this enough to get you interested if you weren't already previously interested? And this is a rare case where I think it actually kind of does in the way that they've delivered it. So not saying that, this is going to go back and change my opinion of BioShock Infinite, but as content in addition to that, I think it definitely offers something that I'm interested in.
Yeah, the thing that I said during the post-mortem Lauren and I did on BioShock Infinite, in terms of DLC, the thing I would like to have seen, and they still may do it, but I would really like to see some DLC that involves the Lisettes in some way. I was really, really interested in their character, and I use the singular conspicuously and intentionally in that case. Right. But I would really like to see. I would like to see something involving them because I thought that was one of the more interesting aspects of BioShock Infinite. I thought that was something that could be explored more. So I still kind of am. I'm not sure if I'm going to bite for this. Certainly not at these prices. It might be. I own it on PC. I could hold off. Maybe get it on Steam. Somewhere down the road, like on sale. I'm not interested enough to bite on these yet, but that's one thing that I'm kind of holding out to see if they do anything with, because I am rather interested in that angle. Tony, what about you?
I think the way they're releasing it, like you said, DK, is very cool. We do complain about kind of, hearing about something 20 months out and then, like finally getting it dropped on us or whatever. Getting it day and date with the announcement. Although I do think, and we already have talked about it a little bit, the fact that the Season Pass, essentially, they kind of word one was not said about it this entire time, until just a short while ago.
Well, we were worried a few weeks ago if they were even making it. If they knew it, they were doing.
Really, it's kind of one of those things. But this to me is one of those things where right now I don't know. I don't see myself. I don't really see a ton of people going after this right this second. I do think, like what Brent was saying, maybe picking it up on a Steam sale later this year, or possibly even like the Game of the Year edition that comes out later that has all this content with.
That's going to be valuable. I think that's going to be.
I think would be a good sale at the end of this year for Christmas time, like for people that are looking for it. So
people who glutton for punishment. But anyway,
apparently. All right. So next up, speaking of people glutting for punishment, Microsoft just can't seem to make up their damn mind about just about anything. DK, let's see if maybe we can help them make up their minds about this whole self-publishing thing on the Xbox One.
Well, I don't know if you've heard, but I'm getting word now they've officially changed the console name to the 180 because of all the turnarounds that they have done with the Xbox
Waka,
One.
waka, waka.
Waka waka. But no, here's another one. So obviously we already know, what happened in the past with the online connection thing and all that stuff, and them reversing their policies on that regard. Well, lo and behold, they came out and, it started off as rumors, then, kind of came out to be more concrete stories, then ultimately confirmed that Microsoft is going to allow independent developers to self-publish on the Xbox One. And the exact quote that comes from Microsoft's Mark Whitten states this: "Our vision is that every person can be a creator, that every Xbox One can be used for development, that every game and experience can take advantage of all the features of Xbox One and Xbox Live. This means self-publishing. This means Connect, the cloud, achievements. This means great discoverability on Xbox Live." We'll have more details on the program.
I don't know if it's that
timeline at Gamescom in August. So it ramped up and it got us all stoked. And it's like, we'll tell you about it at Gamescom. But the bottom line is, yes, they're doing this. It's just weird that they're saying our vision is that this is a part of the console when it wasn't a part of the console when they announced it. So that's created a lot of backlash. But
they've had a lot of visions since the
they've had a lot of visions. Yeah, waking up in cold sweats. But the bottom line is that they have responded. They will make this a part of the platform. We're talking throughout this whole introduction and subsequent layout of what the Xbox One is. We keep bringing up what matters today and what will matter down the road. This falls into that category as well. They're realizing that it's better to just get it done and face all of the criticism now as opposed to just not have it. And this is the right choice for them. This is something I think that adds value to the Xbox One. We're looking at other platforms, Ouya, an open source type of thing. We're looking at Sony's embracing of the independent developer. Microsoft needs to be competitive within that sector, and you never know what you're going to get. And the opportunity for developers to look at that platform as something that could be fruitful for them is very big. And so I think this is good. Hindsight, obviously, is 2020. It should have been built in from day one. But what do you guys think of the announcement, and are there any negatives associated with it that people should be aware of?
I mean, personally, no. I don't think there is, and I think that this just goes back to what we were saying. Right around the time that E3 was getting ready to start, after we had seen the reveals of the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 already, we talked about this could get really, really interesting as the year rolls on, and boy, has it ever. And really. I think it's astonishing to see how dogged both companies are to try and sell themselves as being that one next gen platform that you want to spend your money on when we get down to this fall. The only thing that Microsoft, at this point, between all of the disparity that there was between the two consoles as they were when they were announced, or as they stood at E3, of all the disparity that has existed, it has gotten closer and closer and closer and closer, and that is almost entirely because of the reversals that Microsoft has made over what they announced at their press event for the Xbox One. So the only thing that they really haven't reversed course on right now is the price.
The price.
The name is the price. And I suppose that if they were to decide that they wanted to put out a version of the Xbox One without the Kinect, then they could probably match price too. Although
that would stated that they
can't.
They can't, right? Yeah. Because it's integral. But again, Microsoft saying, well, we can't possibly have this feature missing because it's integral. I don't really buy into all that much.
That's
I've heard
true.
That
it's hard to trust.
Times with Windows related stuff.
Well,
I think, we can't possibly get rid of this DRM. It's integral to the process. And they're like, oh yeah, I guess we're gonna get rid of the DRM.
All right, fine, yeah.
So
sure.
I think the first thing that you kind of start off with, DK, was saying, is there a potential downside to this? And the actual thing that they're going to announce, we don't know what it's going to be yet. To be honest, I mean, it could be that every single one could do it as long as you buy this extra dev kit commitment contract that's $1,000 or whatever. I mean, I don't think that it will be that bad. As a matter of fact, I think this is actually really good news. The only downside that I do kind of get is just the fact that it seems like Microsoft keeps coming out with things, which really, it does sort of worry me a little bit that either their vision is not like lined up with what people wanted, so they keep feeling like they got to throw more at them, or they just, I don't know exactly what it is. Like, I will say that I do think they might be playing a slightly smarter game than, say, like Sony. I mean, I think Sony, for what it's worth, played, maybe not all, but all that we know of, at least so far, all of their cards at E3. And Microsoft, kind of went into E3, beat up and bloodied, and as it kind of came out, and ever since,
I think
there hadn't been basically a week.
Just how beat up they were.
There hasn't been a week basically that's gone by that they haven't announced something. I mean, some of them have been bigger announcements, some have been smaller, but almost every one of them has been a positive change.
Sure.
It does worry me a little bit that I'm kind of a little uneasy as to what their real vision for the system is when when I feel like they keep kind of coming up with stuff. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just kind of worries me.
I think they laid out their vision at their press conference. I think that what they've discovered
and that's what I mean,
is that they falsely believed that there was going to be total and complete acceptance of their vision.
Exactly.
And that people weren't going to, be lured away by anything Sony had to offer, and that's not been the case.
And it just feels like they both showed up and they said they both presented their houses, like their architectural designs, and they said, here's our house. Well, everyone was happy with Sony's house, and everyone kind of lit Microsoft's house on fire. So in the subsequent weeks, they're going room by room and putting out fires. So it's good that things are like getting better and it's getting back to a normal state. But just because you're making progress from a place of such negativity, does it really mean that you're basically just getting back to square one with where you should have been in the first place?
Well, I'd argue that they are maybe a little bit better than square one, because a lot of the announcements they've made, like for instance, and again, we don't really know what this is going to be. This is still something we're not going to find out for another month or so, but whatever the announcement is, I have a feeling it's going to be a pretty positive option for people wanting to self-publish on the system in whatever form, fashion that they're going to allow us to.
Which is
so
good.
I can't see this as being exactly. And I haven't really heard Sony say anything to this place. So you could almost argue that some of the things they're putting out there are potentially helping them gain a little bit of a ground.
Sure.
But it just feels like if they had started in a better position, this probably wouldn't have happened. Which, good, bad, and different. Maybe it's a good thing that they started from that point, so that when they eventually do release, that there's going to be an even better product out in the market.
Just to clarify, what you were just saying right there about self-publishing, were you suggesting that Sony has not really spoken to self-publishing?
Well, not on the console, not like using their console as the development kit. So
it's that specific thing. Is it like the consumer version?
Oh yeah. Because I think they've pretty much I'm talking about the new.
They've said they're
change.
doing self-publishing.
Yes, yeah. No, I'm talking about like using the system as a development, kit and all that sort of stuff.
Gotcha. Okay, I wasn't sure what you meant by that. Okay, so
no, absolutely.
Here's the last thing on this that I just want to say as we wrap up here. We've talked about this show. Our battle cry, ha ha ha, for the longest time has been let your voice be heard, let your voice be heard. We have always talked about the importance of people standing up and speaking to the things that they believe in and what they want to see as gamers. And in the past, there have been plenty of people in our audience and outside our audience that have been skeptical of that as an effective way of making change. And I am here to tell you,
you're welcome, game industry.
Look at what's going on right now, and tell me and tell me that gamers crying out and letting their voice be heard doesn't have an effect. Look at what Microsoft is doing right now. Look at EA.
Totally.
The story's a couple months old, but EA has ended their online pass program. That's the thing. Gamers letting their voices be heard, letting these companies know what they think, speaking with their wallets, it does have an effect. It has a profound effect, and we can see that happening in what's going on in the game industry this year.
Epic Battle Cry. There's no other reason.
Yes, I fully believe that.
Anyway,
I take full credit.
So Yeah, it's a very good point.
What else is new?
So next up, we do have also, along with some other Microsoft news, we have the announcement of some of the price points on some of the other Xbox One accessories. We already kind of heard like what the kit's going to include and whatnot. We've even heard some of the prices on some of Sony's competing their camera and things like that. But Brent, what are the price points on like the controller and some of these other devices?
Okay, so here's what we've got. The Xbox One wireless controller is going to run you $59.99. That's $10 more than the 360. You're also going to be able to pick up the Play and Charge kit for the Xbox One, just like you could with the 360. That's going to set you back $25 by itself, but you can get a bundle with a wireless controller and the Play and Charge kit. That's going to be $75, so that'll save you $10. Also, as you're probably aware, there's not going to be a headset bundled with the Xbox One since they're using Kinect for voice chat functionality. If you want to get a headset, it's going to cost you $25, which I'm assuming means it's going to be a hell of a lot fucking better than that headset that they gave you with the 360, because that thing was definitely not worth $25. But anyway,
it was actually pretty good.
Except what?
Those were actually pretty good.
I beg to differ, sir.
I used it for a while.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, you used it, but you didn't enjoy using it. And I
couldn't hear anyone.
I promise you, the people that were listening to you on the other side did not enjoy you using it. I promise you that.
That very statement has been made by many a Kinect.
That's actually a great point. Is whether or not the chat functionality using Kinect could be any worse than using the included headset from the 360. But anyway, my point is this: do you guys think?
There's a point coming?
That yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I frankly, I feel like we've just sort of talked our Microsoft load all out here. But
yeah.
Well, no, there's still load left.
Okay, I'm waiting.
That's what she said. And the bottom line is
what she said? See,
no,
I don't think you're using
said.
that right. You keep saying that, and she wouldn't say that, I don't believe. He might.
I'm just going to stop right there. So basically, the differentiating factor right now, I had this conversation via social media with one Mr. Ruben Escobar Sanchez Filio Sweetwater Turner Moretz, who is the tech guru for EpicBattleX.com. And he was saying, hey, the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 are like, I don't know which one to get. This is the first time in a long time that I haven't gone into a console launch knowing what I'm going to get. And I think that the software hasn't been shown right now to really kind of allow consumers to make that definable difference. Like, okay, now I definitely know I'm going to get that because these games are on it and blah, 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 blah. And with all the changing and switching going around with Microsoft and everything else, it's really kind of hard to tell what you're going to end up with when you pick up the box with the Xbox One. But the next thing that people usually go to is price. That's what determines for consumers which console they're going to pick up. And with the Xbox One being $100 more already, and then knowing, look, I don't want to use a Kinect sensor for voice chat. I don't want to use a Kinect sensor.
Daniel, you just don't know that you want to use it that way.
That's right.
I like using a headset whenever I'm playing video games. Even if I'm playing a single player game, I use my Turtle Beach headset or whatever, and I like the sound better. I just enjoy it better, and I take that experience into chat and everything else. So I'm going to have to buy this. So now I'm looking at a $500 console, the $25 headset. If I get the out of the control, it's like it's adding up. It's adding up. It's adding up.
A new TV stand because the Xbox One's going to crush the old one.
Exactly. So my point here is that these accessories and everything else are adding to that weight that I think is being a differentiating factor in making a choice, because these consoles are so neck and neck until we see more software, and Gamescom hopefully will do that for us and know what we'll actually be playing. But it is something that people are considering, and I think it's a very important point.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that the price point is interesting. I think the price point specifically to these items, I mean, it seems about fair. It seems about what's right or whatever. But just in general, the fact that I do think you have to keep in mind that there's a lot of stuff that you're going to be shelling out money for, and you haven't even gotten to the buying the games yet, the whole point of having the console. So, yeah, good point. All right, well, so last but not least in the gauntlet today, we are going to talk a little bit about a Shadow of the Eternals return that's coming, and maybe a voice that you might have heard in the past. DK, what can you tell us about the remake?
Yes. So the return of Shadow of the
I see what you
Eternals.
did there.
They're really trying. I mean, I don't know what to make of this because they keep going back to the well trying to get something to
It's
work.
a solid effort, right?
Yeah, here they go. So Precursor Games has Shadow of the Eternals, and basically what they announced now is they've got David Hayter, of course, the voice of Solid Snake from Metal Gear, has come on board to voice the lead character, Paul
gear
Becker.
2 syllables.
Metal Gear.
There
Yeah,
you
and
go.
he said this. He said that he intends to provide gamers with a provocative and memorable experience on the roller coaster ride that is Shadow of the Eternals. And I'm pretty sure he's talking about the game, not its road to development, which has also been a roller coaster ride. So basically, they relaunched a Kickstarter campaign. They cut it in half. They had the initial goal of $1.5 million to fund the PC and Wii U game, which is what the title was announced for. Now that goal is $750,000, and instead of it being episodic, they're going to make it a single full-fledged 8 to 10 hour action-adventure game. There's also a stretch goal to get it onto the PlayStation 4 as a port. So that's basically what's going on with this project, which is become a shadow of its former self, if you will, but also expanding in the same way by looking to other platforms, including a big name like David Hayter. Do you guys think that Kickstarter provides people with too many opportunities to... I mean, I always feel weird about that. When something doesn't get funded and then like they make kind of little changes and then try to go back, is it pointless to do that? Or is it... I mean, like, no. Everyone has already kind of said, no, we don't want to fund this, especially if it's not like they missed their goal by like a few $1,000s, you know what I'm saying? So now they're going to try again. I mean, I don't know. Should games like this continue to be in development? They put a lot of work and effort into it, but maybe they should just try another route with what they've already built.
Well, I think that's possible. But as far as you know, Kickstarter providing too many opportunities, I think that the Kickstarter is a great barometer. Yeah. Or at least it can be for, you know, just how badly people want what you're selling, and that's the whole thing. Is like, you know, if you It just as if, you know, you were pitching, you know, like a venture capital firm or something like that. If you can't convince, the difference being is that, you know, the people in the venture capital firm are not the members of the audience most likely that you're going to be trying to sell your game to.
Right. This is direct access to
whatever. That's exactly right. I mean, you know, you've got direct access to the people that, in theory, you know, would be most excited about whatever you're selling. And if they're not biting, then that means that whatever it is that, you know, that you're selling, as great as an idea as it seems to you, and as great as an idea as it might be for a small group of people, the simple fact of the matter is that there simply might not be enough interest or support there to really justify what you're trying to do at the price point you're trying to do it. So I think that going back and retooling and, you know, changing things up, whether that is, you know, just saying, okay, well, you know what, maybe we've overestimated how interested people are, or how popular, you know, this might be. So let's dial it back and, you know, think about what we could do for less money. Or as you're saying, like, maybe they just, you know, go on to something else. Like, look, you know, we've got some great tech that we've developed. You know, we've got, you know, some game engine stuff that we can work with. Let's think about what else we might do. And that's the thing. I mean, you know, Kickstarter is really a marketplace of ideas in a very literal sense.
And honestly, there's a lot of businesses that would kill for the opportunity to know that something's not going to work before they get too deep into it and save themselves the time, the trouble, the money, the heartache of like going through that whole process and then releasing a dud, you know? And I think Kickstarter is equally as good for doing that as it is for funding stuff. It's like, hey, I have got this idea. What do you guys think? Okay, no? Okay, great. Let me take the good parts of that idea and turn it into something else. But I don't know. And I'm not meaning to rail on this game in particular. I'm just talking more about the broad concept of Kickstarter and kind of, you know, seeing something fail at funding and then kind of just trying to tweak it slightly and see if it's going to still take. I agree with what you're saying. It's like you're directly communicating with your audience there. So
yeah, that's invaluable information.
I do think, though, you know, I think the thing about Kickstarter, though, is it's more about the pitch, I think, than anything. Like, I mean, if your pitch is good enough, you'll get the funding. It's really almost the product that comes out of that is almost, I don't want to say secondary because it's not secondary, but it is almost secondary in importance to the pitch. Because I mean, you know, I've seen those stuff go out there. Yeah, exactly. So you go based off of what they're telling you they can.
Well,
or
you're
can't
literally
do or whatever.
buying an idea on Kickstarter. I mean,
Well,
that's what
you're helping
you paid
support a
money.
concept. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
And-
say you're investing in an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and
true,
So,
that's true.
so the thing is, I wonder if it's one of those things where if this had just come out on a different day where there was less going on the internet and some Reddit post, got put up about it, and some, some channel somewhere, picked it up and started promoting it, if it couldn't have been a little more popular. Like I think sometimes today it's still just about as some of the bigger titles, of course, that everyone hears about. I mean, they're going to get the attention they deserve, right, wrong, and different. But some of these ones that are, I think, a little smaller, I think sometimes do get kind of lost in the mix. The product they're showing, I think it actually looks like it could be potentially pretty cool, and I actually think that there's probably a decent amount of people out there that might enjoy this game when it comes out. I just don't think that they maybe hit that right kind of connection with their audience, right?
Yeah.
Right, wrong, or different. And to me, that does say that maybe tweaking your product that you're offering up just a little bit could be all you need, but in this case doesn't look like.
Yeah. Well, and there's also something to be said. I mean, it's a risky platform. It has so much potential, but you run the risk that, like, when you get a name of a game out there's something to be said for the subconscious fact that a game fails to get funded, especially if it fails miserably to get funded. Then there's something to be said for, what happens subconsciously when people see it the next time around or whatever. It's like, wait, what, didn't you already try this? So I think a lot of it does come down to presentation and communicating with your audience, and also your intended audience, but also your built-in audience, and seeing how you can grow it. It's a wonderful platform if you can do it right. And I wish these guys nothing but the best, with this title. But it should be interesting. I'm actually very intrigued to see what happens the second go around. Especially with David Hayter on board, Metal Gear. Something.
You do a good David Hayter. I'm not gonna lie.
Why don't they just get you?
That's true. They should.
It's
Hey,
so much
that will
drama
boost your
involved.
Kickstarter if you want me to do the voice. Well, no, they
let's
need
start
David
our
Hayter.
own Kickstarter to pay off David Hayter for all future voice acting jobs, and just get Daniel Kaiser to do it instead.
All right, guys. Well, we are in the main topic this week, and we're going to talk a little bit about something, I'm surprised no one has talked about yet.
Nobody's talking
is
about
the fiasco around the recent discussion between Marcus Beer and Phil Fish. And also, who was it? There was also another indie developer there, too. But that was the big focus because
Jonathan Blow.
Jonathan Blow, that's correct, yeah. But the big conversation is about how one of those two people decided they're just going to leave the industry forever. So, DK, how did we get here? What's going on?
Okay, so most people already know what's happened with Invisible Walls, the podcast on GameTrailers.com. Marcus, Annoyed Gamer, talked, just to set the stage for everybody if you haven't, but most people have. Marcus had some comments for Phil Fish, developer of Fez, and Jonathan Blow, developer of Braid. And of course, these guys both have upcoming projects, or at least had. With the recent kind of self-publishing story that we spoke about in the Gauntlet, some people were seeking comments from these guys as kind of people that are looked up to in the game industry as independent developers, for what it might mean to have independent development on next generation consoles like the Xbox One. They didn't really have a whole lot to say because of the fact that there's not a ton of information out there. So Marcus really called him out, and by saying, hey, it's your responsibility. Obviously, lots of cursing and swearing ensued within his character of the Annoyed Gamer, I guess, or whatever. You could ask Marcus about that, but just watching it and seeing what's there, that's the way it transpired, which translated into a Twitter kind of fiasco between Phil Fish specifically and Marcus that resulted in Mr. Phil Fish saying that he's canceling Fez 2 and walking away from the gaming industry. So a lot of fallout has happened from this, and I wanted to use our time this week on Epic Battle Cry within our main topic. We talk all the time about change in the industry. We talk about the state of the industry. And, this thing that happened really showcased the relationship between those that cover the video game industry and those that actually make video games. I posted as well a response that Cliff Bleszinski had to Phil Fish rather, and there was some feedback generated about that. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but I think it's a wonderful time for us to sit down, talk about kind of how people should be approaching their individual roles in the game industry to accomplish what is the core goal and the end goal of communicating, the creative aspect of the industry and also individual projects and what we want to see be made. So I think we should just go around the horn. What did you guys think of this situation? Let's get into a conversation about the Fez fiasco, as I like to call it, and see what starts brewing. So what did you guys think about what happened and what could have been done better?
Well, first and foremost, I have to say that I was really intrigued to hear what Marcus had said, because I had read through all of Phil Fish's tweets. Game Informer had a link to I don't know if it was on their site or somebody else's, but anyway, they had a link that kind of had like a timeline from like when he first started posting about this after what Marcus had said on Invisible Walls, all the way up to like the final tweet, where he said, "I'm done. Fest 2 is canceled. I quit. Whatever." So I kind of had his side of it, and then I went and watched the Invisible Walls episode in question, and Marcus's rant is right at the front. It's in the first couple of minutes of the show. If anybody else wants to go check it out. And I was actually stunned. I was absolutely stunned by how completely underwhelmed I was by what Marcus was saying. I mean, like the substance of Marcus's rant was predicated upon, and this may not be true. Like Fish denies this, but Marcus's rant was predicated upon the idea that Jonathan Blow and Phil Fish declined to comment to Game Informer on the Microsoft Xbox One deciding to allow self-publishing, and he interpreted that as them, kind of being like arrogant or something, like, oh, we don't want to talk about this. Don't come to us for this. And he was calling them out and saying, like, look, you're indie developers, high profile. You're going to use gaming journalism to sell your games when the time comes. This is, you reciprocating. And then sort of at the end of that statement, he called them like hipsters and, tossers and wankers and assholes or whatever. More Phil Fish than Jonathan Blow. And I was just stunned. I was like, I've been called worse shit by my mother. And like Phil Fish hears this and his reaction is to like Alt-4 rage quit on his like career. And it's something about it just like really, really seems strange to me. And I don't really know a lot about him. I know he's got a reputation for being a bit vocal on Twitter about things and stuff. But really, I was really taken aback. I'm like I can't possibly imagine how in his mind Marcus Beer's opinion is of such great import that he ends his career over something that he said. And I will clarify that according to Fish, it is not this one thing. It is,
right.
Like he says, like it's been a bunch of things, but this was sort of like the last thing, the proverbial straw camel's back reference. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I really, really kind of walked away from this thinking like Phil Fish needed to get away from things really, really badly, because on the surface, like what Marcus said was wholly inconsequential, in my opinion.
That's exactly, I think what you just sort of described there, Brent, about his just needing to get out of the industry. I think that's exactly right. I don't know what it is. Phil Fish is someone who, I don't know, I guess elicits different feelings from different people. I had posted something not too long ago, kind of talking about Phil Fish, about when not wanting to purchase Fez, just because I didn't kind of like to support a guy who sort of thinks so much of himself. Like, there's a lot said back in the days before Fez had come out. He kind of put himself out there as like, this great kind of indie developer before his first game was even out. And then once it was out, he kind of came out and would say stuff about like the Japanese gaming industry, saying that, the Japanese games were crap these days. And, I think a lot of stuff that he says, you could argue was taking out of context, or he was just saying it for effect or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think it is pretty obvious that he does sort of have, I don't know. I don't think that he is necessarily the most gamer-centric person in the gaming industry. I think
Sure.
he's more of a designer. I think he likes certain aspects of it. I think he liked the idea of being such a critical part of the indie game movie that was going on at the time that he was making Fez. I think Fez was a very good game to come out and kind of showcase his abilities, or
Sure.
showcase a concept. But I do think that there is something to be said that like I don't think, for instance, I don't think this whole thing would have gotten the same sort of response it's gotten, because you listen to people online that are saying Marcus Baer should go kill himself. You're hearing stuff that says
it's because Phil Fish told him that on Twitter, but you know.
Well, no, I'm telling you, like, responses to that have, I mean, like, they may be just echoing his thoughts, but they're saying it like, and I really wish you would go kill yourself, essentially. Now, granted, it's the internet. People say stupid shit like that all the time, and really,
and then they quit their jobs,
and then they quit
their jobs. But no, my whole point though is that there's something about. I think there really is a valid point to that. I'm not sure he knew how to follow up, or if he even wanted it enough to follow up.
Yeah.
The success he had with Fez. I don't think he particularly likes the gaming industry. I don't think that when I say, I don't even just mean now, like after these supposed things that have happened to him over the years. I mean, he's brought every bit of it on himself. So I think he just isn't really crazy about the game industry. And you know what? I think this was just the perfect opportunity. You know what? Fuck this. I'm out. And you know what? He is totally within his right to do that.
Sure.
I do think that he handled it in a very childish way. Even though, and I will say this, I do think that maybe... I think you could argue that Marcus probably went at them a little stronger than, like, I personally probably would have. Like, I definitely get where he's coming from, and I don't even disagree that that he was wrong in what he said. I do sort of think, like, you get more bees with honey sort of concept.
Sure.
You probably would have gotten a little bit more out of them rather than kind of just going at their throats the mild way that he did.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what this boils down to for me is just, respecting one another. We've talked about issues on this show for a long, long time in terms of like, that's BS. You can't do that. You can't charge for that. You can't say one thing and then do another, or they're taking this away. This is something that we've loved for a long time and supported.
Who let you in here?
And then they're changing it. We've come up with a lot of issues, and our mantra has always been speak with your voice and get out there and say what you want. But the bottom line is that, one of the big issues is with this story is just the way in which people communicate with one another, especially with the prevalence of Twitter, which played an integral part in this whole thing, and just being able to fire off the hip without really thinking about the consequences of stuff. Look, we're talking about video games, man. We're talking about entertainment. This is an awesome industry. I love it. It's been it's so awesome to track and be a part of for so long, and it's a part of our lives. It's a part of what we do, and we're passionate about it. But there's never an excuse to like take it to this type of level, is the way I think about it. And I think that, what Marcus was saying was accurate, and that, hey, if you're going to be in the press and use the press to get promotion of your game, or to use it to get leverage to increase awareness for your game, then, respect the fact that there's people who probably, especially when you reach a certain level of prominence, want your opinion or regard your opinion as being something valuable towards a specific topic. There's no reason why you can't just be cool. If you don't know what's going on with it, then do exactly what he did, which is say, I don't have a comment right now because I don't have all the information. Okay, great. We'll maintain that and move on. But, and I would tell Marcus this if I was right in the office with him, but I'm not. But I mean, that was very aggressive the way he kind of went after him. But that's, it's not an excuse to hide behind the shtick of being annoyed gamer, but that is something that I think transpired in this particular instance, that, it's okay to just throw a bunch of curse words out when, and just call people names when really the heart of the issue is, hey, look, people want to hear from you, so let's hear what you have to say on the concept when you're ready. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say on the matter, because it's important to us as an industry. But
in similar fashion though to what Tony was saying, and I feel like Marcus, like all of that shit that Marcus was saying about Fish was not about this one incident. I think that this was like shit that Marcus had been thinking about Phil Fish for a while, and this was sort of an excuse to just rant on it a little bit.
Yes.
I think that in similar fashion, Marcus kind of had his own baggage on Phil Fish that he was bringing into this.
I I agree. I agree with that. And I think there's, like I said, I really think that this is one of those situations, of which we've had a few in our lives lately, where both sides were kind of guilty for sort of not handling it the best way. Like, sure. I do think, I would admit that I think that, Marcus could have probably, gone at it slightly different angle. But let's be honest, like that's sort of his shtick, that's his style. I think that to be brutally honest with you, this probably came out about as positively as I think he might have wanted it. Because let's be honest, how much more attention is he getting right now, good or bad? Any publicity is good publicity. Like, this is not necessarily a horrible way for him to have gone about it. I think Phil Fish, though, is just, I really think that this was kind of I think this just showed that, like, this guy really didn't want to be here, and he's using this, I think, as a way of getting out. Let me just drop two ideas, though, out there. Because I do think one of the more interesting parts on this is really how the gaming public at large has dealt with this. And there's two aspects of it that I kind of find interesting and sort of my take on them. And I might be wrong, but this is just my take on them. And that is, first off, would this be such a huge controversy if Fez was not regarded in the way that it is? I'll throw that out there, and then I'll throw out this second. If the developers of Colonial Marines came out there and made this statement, they'd be like, "Fine, get the fuck out of here." So there, you've got that, and then I also think that the second part of this, and I think kind of goes along to it, is I think gamers are being a little selfish in the way that they're sort of defending Phil Fish. I think they're more disappointed now that they aren't getting their sequel to Fez than they are, like, truly, we really like Phil Fish. He's a great guy. They're like, no, hey, everybody shut up. Phil, we're sorry. Do your game. Please. We're sorry. We didn't mean to say it. I think they're more, it's more about them being disappointed they're not getting their game. And so they're willing to put up with, this kind of, drama queen activity from this person because they want something out of it. So I don't know. What do you two guys? What do you think about those?
All right. Well, first off, I mean, obviously, if Fez wasn't a successful and high profile indie game, nobody would have been looking for his opinion in the first place. So I definitely think there's something to that. As far as how other people are kind of reacting to this, I don't know. I mean, I haven't read like an awful lot of like the tweets in support of or in defense of Fish or whatever. But I think just to kind of go back to something we said at the top, I think the reaction of some other people in the industry is actually like really, really fascinating. I don't want to give him too much time on the show because it's what he wants. But obviously Cliff Bleszinski penned this open letter to Phil Fish, basically encouraging him, like, hey, don't let him get you down. Don't you don't owe these assholes anything. You
gotta work at being a douchebag, Phil.
You really do. The one thing that I will say about this, there's this great quote from an article that you wrote on Side Mission, Daniel. There's this great quote from Bleszinski that says, the key is to absorb all that hate into one big fireball of motivation inside your belly, and then pour all of that energy into your work until you can unleash one big, giant motherfucking Hadoken upon the community that wins awards, sells millions, and then the haters will truly eat a giant bushel of dicks as you roll in a pile of money, acclaim, and community love. And the thing that's ironic is that those three things in that order, money, acclaim, and community love, are the most important things to Cliff Bleszinski. So that's the last time I want to mention him in relation to this.
Well, but
strangely enough, let me just say one other thing. Strangely enough, I think that one of the most calm voices in all this was Jim Sterling, who on Ask FM was talking about this, and he said that he was both fond of Phil and Marcus, and he said that speaking as a guy who used to get in the same kind of Twitter fights, all I could say is I hope they mellow out, the pair of them, because there's no long-term satisfaction or happiness to be gained out of one-upping other people on Twitter.
There you
just
go.
Get more frustrated, lash out more, make more people have fights with you. Blah, 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 blah. I wish the best for Phil and Marcus both. I've never had cause to dislike either of them personally, and it's a shame they used their weekend for this. And I was like, wow, look at that. The voice of reason.
No, and
I hate Jim. I wish he'd go kill himself.
No, that was great. Bravo to Jim, because that's exactly my feelings on the matter. And I did write that story about that article from Dude Huge, and that was because it was, one
So
developer,
self-serving.
him basically saying that you don't owe a damn thing to any game journalist, and the whole line of like eating a giant bushel of dicks and rolling in a pile of money. I'm just taken back by like, goodness gracious. And also making an open letter is just like kind of capitalizing on the thing. But then people, this is the way it works. Like Sterling said, it's a never-ending cycle because people started attacking me for writing about an open letter, which is meant to be public and like something that is meant to be read aloud to bring up a larger issue. It's like, if it wasn't public, if you really had this heartfelt sincere thing you wanted to share with them, you should have just contacted them personally or
it's
send
not like
an email,
you snuck into
make a phone
Dude
call.
Huge's dollhouse of a home and took it away from him or something.
Right, exactly. But anyway, that's besides the point. It's just, this is a never-ending story, and the whole point of this topic concludes with this for me.
Except there's no flying dragons, so.
Exactly. It concludes with this for me. We have to respect one another. We have to go after what it is that we are think that we're capable of achieving creatively, professionally, but not at the expense of other people. In my opinion, like, do what you want in your own life. But what I'm seeing a lot of, and people attacking people viciously, maliciously, individuals. You know, we've, like I said, the caveat of, we talk about companies and how they treat their customers a lot, but I don't think there's been a single time that, you know, I know that on this show where we've said something to the effect of "go kill yourself" or whatever to an individual.
Well, I mean, I've said it like eight times.
But in a way in which we're being serious, you know what I'm saying. So anyway, my point is that this is an entertainment industry. We do need to kind of grow up a little bit and handle the responsibility that comes along with being in a public eye. If you are and you are on a show, or if you're making a game, there's certain responsibilities. One of the things that I agree with Mark is, he says, it's a two-way street. You have to treat, you know, like if you're going to have this exposure, you need to kind of respond to this and blah 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 blah. But also with Phil Fish, I could totally see how he would be annoyed. I don't do Twitter, the Twitter thing a whole lot, because like I just don't want that in my life, like a bunch of you know, malicious type of stuff, which is what I see most of the time on the platform. I know there's a lot of fun stuff too, and a lot of people use it and have fun with it, but I'm not big on it for that reason. But anyway, my hope is that we could emerge from this situation and kind of come out of it as better people who respect one another more and kind of change the way we talk.
The thing that I think I would say, my kind of final thing to this, is just don't feed the troll. If Phil Fish felt like Marcus Beer was really hating on him,
just walk away.
Possibly imagine why he wouldn't just walk away from it. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've had, you know, people on Twitter, you know, send things at, you know, my Twitter handle and you get up in my face and stuff. Yeah. And I'm just like, look, I know you want me to respond to you so that, you know, a bunch of people see, you know, your fucking Twitter handle so you can promote your podcast or whatever it is that you're doing, you know, and I just don't engage because there's nothing to be gained from it. There is absolutely nothing good that's going to come. It's not about, you know, as Phil Fish said, like, I don't believe in taking the high road. It's not about taking the high road. It's about not giving them what they want. And, you know, for better or worse, I mean, I think Marcus Beer wanted a fight. And so, you know, just engaging in that level is just not going to do you any good. Having said that, though, I also will kind of play devil's advocate to this and say, grow a fucking skin on you. I've been called an asshole to my face by every principal I've had since the 5th grade. All right? It is not the end of the world for somebody to call you names. It really isn't.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I think my less will take on it is just the fact that I think the real problem here is everybody that's involved in this has done and said, you know, it's perfectly fine. To be honest with you, the way Phil Fish reacted to it's perfectly fine. If that's the way he wants to react to it, then that's it. I just hope that the audience at large out there kind of responds to this in kind, which is kind of like, you know, hey, if you're going to be that kind of person, we're not going to really support that, you know, going forward. Like if you had just stood up and kind of said, you know what, man, I didn't really think this is what this was going to be about, so you know, hey, I'll talk to you guys later, and just left or whatever. But essentially, he took like the teacher who punished the whole class because one student did something wrong. Like that's just not the right way to do stuff. He's saying like, look, not going to make the game. I'm getting out of the industry. Just screw it all. You know, I mean, like that was a
well,
poor way
I
of
agree
handling
with
it.
what
But you
you're
know
saying,
what though?
though.
But my whole point though is that he Cliffy B, Marcus, everybody involved in this, you know what? You handle it the way you want to. You just need to be prepared to kind of reap what you sow. If you you can handle it that way, but you have to understand that people are going to kind of remember that and take that. For both sides.
I hate you.
I hate you too.
Hey. Do you think that if I talk really bad about him, I can get the guys from Forza Horizon to quit the industry?
Probably not.
Hey, did you play their last game? Pretty sure they already have. All right, guys. Well, it is coming up on the end of this week's Skirmish, but first we have our battle cries of the week, and my battle cry is going to go to the team over at Microsoft. They've had a lot of announcements over the last couple weeks, and something they announced just today, or at least today as of our recording, is they kind of laid out some of the new the new process of matchmaking for your online games. And one of the biggest...
It's called Get in Line, you dumb bitch.
Yeah. Does it use Connect?
Well, we may find out that it'll use it more and more, but basically they're talking about all the things that you can do while you're waiting for your matchmaking to happen on your game. Okay. And it's genius because I didn't realize this was a problem up until now. Yeah. The 30 seconds or 60 seconds between, each match, I didn't realize that I should be, switching over to play another game in the middle of it or searching the web,
ADD.
I mean, let's be honest with you. I've got my cell phone next to me. In between matches, I'm talking shit to the other players that I'm about to, kill or be killed by.
You're getting people
and I'm checking out porn on my phone. That's what you do. You don't
basically it.
Exactly. And basically they're saying you can jump over and play another game. It's like, no, I'm playing this fucking game. This is a problem we didn't used to have. Is now we have to find things to do.
One game just isn't enough.
Exactly.
I can't have 5 seconds of if I were to develop a game, there would literally the loading screen would just be like something to focus on, and just be like, you hear that? It's nothing. Isn't quiet nice? It's just or just play Depeche Mode, enjoy the silence the whole time. I don't know.
I don't know, man.
You want to talk about getting people to rage quit their jobs? Play a little fucking Depeche Mode in a situation where people can't make it stop.
Man, I don't know. I think it is. Don't get me wrong. I actually think Microsoft is really trying to kind of show all the neat little things, and I think one of the things is that you can have multiple games sort of in a sort of standby state, and I think one of their concepts is hey, while you're waiting on your loadout screen or whatever for Call of Duty or whatever, you can jump over and maybe play a couple levels of Fez 2. Well, okay, you play a couple levels of a game that is eventually going to come out, and then jump back in when it's ready. But I'm like, really?
Isn't this just sort of a roundabout way of them saying, hey, wait times are about to get a lot longer?
That's kind of where I was going with this. Is I sort of feel like this is a problem that hey, we're just kind of laying it out there. Loading times might be longer than you are used to.
Yeah, but we're going to give you some cool shit to do.
Yeah,
while you wait.
Play a different game. All right, so Brent, what's your battle cry this week?
When you think about it.
Yeah.
My battle cry this week goes out to Michael Biehn. Of course, if you grew up in the 80s as we did, Michael Biehn is sort of like the world's greatest action star that never was. Michael Biehn had supporting roles and starring roles in some fantastic movies, but his career just never took off in a long-term way that any of us were satisfied with. So seeing Michael Biehn back in the mix, as it were, with things like his turn as Corporal Dwayne Hicks once again in Aliens Colonial Marines and in Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon as Sergeant Rex Power Cult has been really, really cool for us. And Joystick has some snippets of interview that Michael Biehn has done recently in which he was talking about the fact that working on Colonial Marines was actually not fun at all.
Really?
And he felt like it was really kind of this is his quote, it seemed kind of passionless. I think movies, television, and the gaming world, you get some people that are really, really passionate and some people that are just going through the paces.
I wish he'd go kill himself.
They think that because they have a brand name, they're going to get a hit game or a hit movie out of it. That was certainly the situation on Aliens Colonial Marines.
Yikes.
By contrast, however, he talks about his follow-up experience, which was voicing Rex Power Cult in Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, as saying it was really fun. He says, quote, and he's talking about creative director Dean Evans, quote, Dean is such an interesting and creative presence. He has such energy and such passion. One of the things that I really, really enjoy still working in this business is finding people that have that kind of passion. And anyway, it was kind of interesting to hear his comments and just kind of, you know, have that sort of contrast between, you know, where the people were coming from on the one side, Aliens Colonial Marines, and on the other side, Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. So I found that to be a very interesting read, and I will just follow up and say that if you haven't played Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, I cannot encourage you enough to do so. You should have picked it up already during the Steam Summer Sale. If you didn't, you're gonna need to grab it at some point. It's a really fantastic game. I will say actually that I was really not sure if I wanted to play Far Cry 3 itself. It sounded kind of cool, but I couldn't decide if I wanted to pull the trigger. And after playing Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, where I've really gotten a sense of the game's mechanics, if not the story and the characters, but really a sense of, like, you know, how the game plays, I've decided that I really want to play Far Cry 3 now. So anyway, I think Blood Dragon's like a really, really awesome bit of DLC.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, can you play Dishonored first before you play Far Cry 3?
Yes, I'll play Dishonored before I play Far Cry 3. But
one
anyway,
user pointed out that the XCOM Enemy Unknown and Dishonored came out on the same day, so you have a mental brain freeze because you associate the playing of Dishonored with favoring it over playing XCOM, which you're extremely passionate about. Yeah. So you've beaten XCOM. You've invested a lot. Now it's time to play Dishonored, and then you can play Far Cry 3, which was okay. I didn't beat it, but I'm more excited to play Blood Dragon, actually, which I haven't played yet either. But
Blood Dragon's awesome. And just to clarify, because I think there's some confusion. Like, some people think that that Blood Dragon is DLC. Yeah. It's not. It's a standalone game. Yeah. You don't need Far Cry 3 to play Blood Dragon. So anyway, that was ultimately the point of this, is that Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon's really cool. Michael Biehn is really cool. You should play Blood Dragon.
Yeah. He's been in a lot of games lately.
Before you move on to DK, something I just thought about before you play Dishonored, the one awesome thing about XCOM Enemy Unknown is once you're finished playing it, you can start playing it again.
As I've discovered 3 or 4 times
so
now.
before you play Dishonored, you might just play another game of that.
Just play Dishonored. I'm telling you.
I try to, but every time
what are you going to do? Quit the industry, DK?
Every time I pick up Dishonored, I do. Like, I go back to that first day. I played Dishonored, and then I was like, oh, okay, I'm not really into this. Like, I think I'll try XCOM Enemy Unknown for a little while and see how that is. And then, you know, like 5 weeks later, I was like, oh, I guess I should move on to another game now.
All right, DK, what is your battle cry this week?
My battle cry this week, TG and 3D, goes out to Jamie Cheng and the guys at Clay Entertainment, who this week unveiled Incognita for the very first time. They did something really cool, and this is one of the things that I love about the state of the industry. We talked on episode 200 about how interactive entertainment has evolved, and I think that one of the things, you know, that we addressed was digital distribution, but also just, you know, the communication between developers and their audience. So it was really cool that they have this brand new project, and they did this thing on Twitch where they basically live streamed about a half an hour of the game and kind of just showed it in a very, very early build of the game, because they said, you know, with their last project, Don't Starve, they got a lot of great feedback during the beta that they're applying towards the development of the project, and they really loved having the community's involvement in the development of that game. So they're bringing people in even earlier into the fold with Incognita. Now, the game looked, I think, really good. They you know, it is an XCOM inspired isometric kind of strategy game. They are, you know, information is key to what happens with your agents, and they kind of just give an introductory through this thing that you could watch on Twitch. But I'm getting ready to do an interview with Jamie Cheng as well about Incognita and the state of their quite fascinating company. I think if you look at, like I mentioned when we first heard about Incognita, about their evolution. They're definitely not a one-trick pony. They're exploring creative realms. They're exploring different avenues of things like fan feedback and how to get a game published and what they should do with it. So I think they're one of my favorite kind of upstart companies right now, and they've been very successful. But this is also a very exciting project as well. If you haven't heard about Incognita, you should definitely check it out. If you have questions, I guess for Jamie that I could incorporate into the interview, you could let me know. Just, I guess, tweet at me or whatever. whatever, Daniel Kaiser. But I'm going to compile some of those and then try to put up an article up on Game Trailers about Incognita. But it's a fascinating project. I want to give a shout out to Clay for kind of handling things in a different way. I think they are kind of carving out this template of what it means to be a game developer in 2013 now, and this kind of balance of fan feedback, creative ideas, using these different methods and things that are afforded to them to kind of achieve something interesting, and most important, they seem to be innovating, which is what I like. So there you go. That's my battle cry this week, and check it out.
I wholeheartedly second that one. I really, really am right there with you. I think the game looks amazing, and I'm also very, very impressed with Clay. They are a very interesting developer, not just for all the reasons you mentioned, but also the way that they conduct business, the way that they handle things with their employees, the kind of environment that they provide for the devs that are working for them, and just their whole attitude towards the kind of game company that they want to be. I think is really an example that other people could learn from.
And attention to detail. Just one quick example, like they were showing that thing from Incognita, and if you haven't seen it, there's like alarm levels that go up, and if you kill a guard, the alarm increases. Like it usually just goes up over time and also as you do things. But if you kill a guard, the alarm goes up, and he just kind of subtly, with one of the developers who was giving the demo, says, well, it's because they have this heart monitor inside of them that when it goes off, the alarm is triggered, and blah 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 blah. You'll never see that in the game, but just little details like that they thought of a way to communicate that, or maybe you will see it in the game, I don't know. But it goes back to like I was talking about, like with Fable, that breadcrumb trail that was there that didn't have any explanation or make any sense when there was like 1,000 reasons that they could have given for it to exist. But as game designers, they kind of just dropped the ball and said, oh, here's this thing to guide you around, as opposed to like giving it context within the story. I think Clay's in this really nice space where they're able to do that stuff, and they are focusing on what gamers want, and it's showing in the experiences that they're delivering.
I just have one question. Do you guys massage the prostate?
Yeah.
Like when you're jerking Clay Entertainment off, do you?
Yeah.
Come on! I can't talk about somebody. I mean, give me a break. And of course I do.
I wish you'd quit the industry. All right, so Brent.
Yes.
Do you have our member battle cry this week?
I do indeed. And our member battle cry comes from Lindsay Carter, and she says,
yay,
honestly, I wouldn't go to San Diego Comic-Con if someone paid me to because of how big it is. I want to go to a comic convention for comics and comic-related things, not this smorgasbord of pop culture and the like. This is why my husband and I are planning to go to a smaller comic convention in North Carolina next year for the ultimate comic experience. I think I know the one that they're talking about, too. Plus, I agree with others, SDCC isn't a be-all for hardcore-related gaming news. If anything, it adds a bridge to comic book-related games, but I guess since it is so popular, devs or publishers see it as another publicity stunt. Huge pirate ship. These days, any news is good news.
True.
Yeah, I mean, she's right on point that's the way they look at it. But I do agree that maybe she's, I think they might be losing that crowd, or it's just changing. Just that crowd is now going to dedicated things, and
I think that if you went to San Diego, like during the 90s and like the early 2000s, I mean, like I can remember just like dreaming of like going to San Diego Comic-Con. It's like, man, that would be the most fucking amazing thing. And you used to see, I mean, like all the exclusives and stuff that would come out of the show, like the exclusive like Transformer action figures and stuff like that, that you could only get there, that different companies would do. It really, really was. It really, really was a mecca for what at the time was, sort of an emerging thing, which was, kind of geek culture. And it wasn't as mainstream as it is now. And that's geek culture is mainstream culture now. And so it kind of is logical that it has become a huge, huge thing, not just, for comic book related things, but, for film and television and now video games and stuff like that. But I understand kind of the frustration a little bit of feeling like it's sort of lost a little bit of its essence along the way, that it's become maybe a little bit diluted. I totally get where they're coming from with
Isn't
that.
that always the way though when something gets more popular?
Yeah,
like, I mean, and I hate to say it, but like, and I'm
but
just
it
as guilty
opens
of that.
the door for, like she said, the smaller thing in North Carolina. The Comic-Con that was here in Denver a few months ago, there was like 60,000 people at that, that was huge. But like for them, not compared to Comic-Con in San Diego, but it opens the door for more things to happen, especially more local things. So as long as they're expressing an interest and a love for a given medium and having fun doing what you're doing, hopefully the more things the better. But as it pertains to our conversation, it is kind of, I think there is a general feeling that gaming is kind of getting lost or losing kind of a lot of the momentum that it had at a show that is as big as Comic-Con. It's hard to compete with something that is just so broad on so many levels. I
don't know.
I think Esteban disagrees with you. He was at San Diego Comic-Con this year, and he was saying that if the game presence was large and in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I don't know. It'll be kind of interesting to see how that particular show, as opposed to something like I think a PAX or or an E3, something that is mostly video game focused, is just be interesting to see how games kind of evolve in relation to film and television, which have traditionally been the big thing at Comic-Con over the last maybe decade or so.
True.
Yep. All right. Well, that is going to do it for this week's Skirmish. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this weekend. Please join us once again next week when we will be mercilessly cleaving the fat from the gaming stories of the day. For Brent Adams and Daniel Kaiser, I'm your host, Tony Grice. And remember, cry havoc and
go play Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. It's coming out soon.
God.
Really?
That's
yes,
what we're going
you're talking about me pushing stuff. Well, and that's my question. How come every time I'm excited about something, it has to be brought into this
because
this realm
every
of,
time
what did
you're
you say,
excited about something, it
massaging
turns into a really shitty game.
That's not true.
Alpha Protocol,
Mass Effect.
What about that Capcom game that had Nolan North that was such a terrible? What was that fucking thing called? The one with the rocket pack.
Dark Void.
He even says it like, yeah, you're right about that.
Do we need to go back to Dark Void, Daniel? I'm not saying you can't be excited about games. I'm saying keep it to yourself.
No. For every game that fails, there's at least one other that succeeds.
Listen. I'm gonna put this to you as kindly as I can. All right. If Incognita sucks because of you.
Oh, come on. Yeah, see, there you go. I've talked up their games. I talked up Mark of the Ninja. You love that. So
I do. I love Mark of the Ninja.
He talks about that one game you love that you'll never play. What was that again?
What was that game?